The stars had always watched in silence. For millions of years they burned and blinked, distant witnesses to civilizations rising and falling across the void. But on this night, on the far edge of a quiet spiral arm, they watched Earth. And something was stirring beneath the blue clouds, something ancient, something powerful. The first contact didn't begin with peace talks or handshakes under the glow of strange suns. It began with fear. Not human fear, but alien. They had come expecting an easy encounter, a primitive species with fragile bodies and limited firepower. To them, Earth was supposed to be a curiosity, another small world to study, perhaps guide, perhaps claim. But as their fleet drifted into orbit, they sensed it. A pulse. A whisper from deep beneath the planet's crust. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy hesitated. Down below, the people of Earth didn't yet understand what was happening. Satellites flickered, communication lines went dark, and power grids trembled. Governments scrambled to respond. Astronomers stared in disbelief as massive shapes eclipsed the stars. And somewhere, deep under layers of forgotten earth and rock, something old began to wake. The ground rumbled. Systems long thought dead powered up one by one. Lights, dim but steady, came alive in tunnels no human had walked for ages. The aliens sent their first message, a calm, measured transmission, layered with symbols of peace. Yet even as they spoke, they scanned the planet, curious about the sudden surge of energy rising from beneath the surface. The readings made no sense. Massive power outputs, untraceable sources, technology far beyond human capability. One of their commanders dismissed it as interference. Another called it impossible. But the oldest among them knew better. "It's not interference," he said quietly. "It's awakening." Back on Earth, a few scientists caught fragments of the alien transmission. At first, they thought it was just noise, cosmic static. But as they decoded it, a message became clear. "We come in peace. Do not fear." Yet fear had already taken hold. Cities prepared for the worst. Militaries stood ready, though no weapon seemed strong enough to matter. Amid the chaos, a small research team working beneath the Pacific made a discovery, a structure older than any known civilization. It wasn't human, but it wasn't alien either. The water above them began to boil as the structure's metal hull vibrated, ancient engines humming back to life. A sound like thunder rolled through the deep, shaking the seabed. The alien fleet above Earth adjusted orbit, their sensors now filled with impossible readings. "It's a ship," one of them whispered. "But it's not theirs." Then came the first light, a beam that pierced the ocean and reached for the sky, so bright it blinded sensors and scorched clouds. From every corner of the solar system, eyes turned toward Earth. The galaxy watched. The battleship was awake. And as the alien commanders realized what they had disturbed, one chilling thought echoed through their minds, unspoken yet shared by all. They were not the first to come here. They were not the first to fear. The signal from Earth went silent. The stars, once silent witnesses, now seemed to hold their breath. Something vast was coming, and it had just begun to remember. The ocean was calm again, but only on the surface. Deep below, the battleship continued to stir, its systems awakening from a sleep that had lasted longer than human history itself. The research team that discovered it stood in stunned silence, surrounded by flickering monitors and trembling metal walls. None of them could explain what they were seeing. The readings defied every known law of physics. An impossible power source, architecture of unknown origin, and a language carved into the hull that no database could translate. One of the researchers leaned closer to the screen, her voice shaking as she whispered, "It's not alien." The others turned to her, confused. "Look at the material composition," she said. It's too familiar. It's built from elements found only on Earth." That single statement changed everything. If the ship wasn't alien, then who or what had built it? Above them, the alien fleet orbited in uneasy silence. Their commanders watched the readings grow stronger with every passing second. They had traveled across hundreds of light years to find new life, but now they faced something ancient and unpredictable. Their sensors picked up faint transmissions coming from the battleship, low-frequency signals that carried patterns, codes, maybe even voices. The longer they listened, the more it felt like the ship was scanning them back. On Earth, panic had spread across nations. News channels looped grainy footage of lights over the oceans, and governments struggled to hide what they knew. In hidden bunkers and command rooms, leaders argued about what to do next. Was it a weapon? A defense system? Or something left behind by an unknown civilization that had called Earth home long before humans? As hours passed, the ship began to rise from the ocean floor, displacing massive waves that rocked coastal regions. The research team scrambled to evacuate, their submarine nearly torn apart by the current. Through the viewing ports, they saw a faint glow, lines of light tracing across the ship's surface like veins coming alive. It wasn't metal anymore. It felt alive, pulsing with rhythm, responding to something unseen. Meanwhile, in orbit, the alien fleet's communication systems began to fail. One by one, their ships lost connection with the flagship. A strange signal was spreading through their network, faint at first, then louder, until it overtook every channel. The language was unknown, but the tone carried authority, as if something was reclaiming control. For the first time, the aliens realized they might not be the ones observing. They might be the ones being watched. On the surface, people around the world could now see it. A pillar of light reached high into the sky, visible from continents away. Some thought it was a weapon. Others called it a sign, a warning. Whatever it was, it didn't feel human. And yet, deep inside, something about it felt familiar, like a distant memory trying to surface. One scientist, watching from an orbital station, whispered the thought everyone feared to voice. What if this isn't the first time Earth has been visited? What if it's the first time it's answering back? The alien fleet began to move, forming defensive lines, their engines humming with tension. But before they could act, the light from the battleship flickered once, then went completely dark. Every scanner on every ship froze. For a moment, space was utterly still. Then, slowly, a single new signal appeared. Strong, steady, deliberate. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was something in between. And as it echoed across the void, one truth became clear to all who heard it. The battleship wasn't waking up by accident. It had been waiting. The signal spread faster than anyone could track. Within minutes, every receiver, satellite, and listening post across Earth was flooded with the same rhythmic pulse, steady, deliberate, like a heartbeat. At first, it was dismissed as interference, but then the pattern began to change, weaving itself into something unmistakably structured. It was a message. No one knew what it meant, but it carried intent. And whatever was sending it wasn't just calling out, it was calling something back. In orbit, the alien commanders gathered in silent chambers of light, watching as their instruments flickered and dimmed. The signal was penetrating every layer of their technology, rewriting systems faster than they could react. "It's trying to communicate," one of them said. "No," another replied. "It's trying to understand us." They had encountered hundreds of species before, but never something that could read and respond to their systems as if they were an open book. For the first time, they realized they might have underestimated Earth not because of its people, but because of what slept beneath it. On the surface, human scientists worked desperately to decode the transmissions. The research team that had escaped the ocean watched as global power grids flickered in sync with the ship's pulse. Every device, from phones to satellites, was responding to the same hidden frequency. It wasn't random. The pattern mirrored neural signals, as though the entire planet was being pulled into a single, shared rhythm. One of the researchers, exhausted and shaken, muttered, "It's syncing with us." At the same time, strange atmospheric changes began to ripple across the skies. Auroras appeared where they shouldn't, over deserts, over jungles, even above cities. The light wasn't natural. It moved in shapes, spirals, and lines, almost like writing. People around the world stopped to stare, unaware they were witnessing a message written across the planet itself. Meanwhile, the alien fleet prepared for the worst. Their ships powered up defensive systems, though none of them were certain what they were defending against. They had sent smaller drones toward the source of the light, but each one vanished before reaching the ocean. Some believed the ship was absorbing them. Others whispered that it wasn't a ship at all, but something older, something that had been part of Earth before life ever began. Down in the depths, the battleship continued to rise. Its hull glowed faintly now, revealing markings that no one could fully decipher. But one pattern stood out, a spiral symbol, repeating over and over. The same spiral now glowing in the skies above. The connection between Earth, the ship, and the stars was becoming undeniable. In a hidden command center, human leaders debated their options. Some argued for communication, others for evacuation. "If this thing is alive," one general said, "then maybe it remembers what happened last time it woke up." The room fell silent. The implication was terrifying. Whatever had built this ship had done it once before. And maybe they had buried it for a reason. The alien flagship made its final move, breaking formation and sending a single vessel closer to Earth's surface. As it descended, their sensors caught something, movement inside the ship, not mechanical, but organic. The reading was faint, like a heartbeat echoing through the metal. "It's alive!" one of the alien crew whispered. At that exact moment, the light from the ocean flared again, brighter than before, casting shadows across the moon. The pulse grew louder, deeper, resonating through both Earth and space. The signal that followed wasn't random. It carried structure, tone, and what sounded eerily like a voice. Every being, human and alien, heard it at once, a voice that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Calm, ancient, certain. "Do not approach." Then silence. And in that silence, the realization spread like fire. Something buried deep within Earth had just drawn a line, one that neither side fully understood. And the question no one could answer was simple. Who had it been waiting for? The warning echoed across the void, but neither humans nor aliens moved immediately. The ocean's surface reflected the rising sun, but beneath the waves, the battleship throbbed with a presence that felt almost sentient. Every sensor, every monitor, every eye trained on the deep felt it. The world was no longer entirely theirs. Something older, something vast, had awoken. On Earth, the research team scrambled, trying to make sense of the voice, the pulse, the strange patterns in the atmosphere. One of the scientists pointed to the readings, voice shaking. "It's not just a ship. It's linked to Earth itself. The planet is responding." Outside, the auroras twisted violently, cascading over cities and oceans, casting everything in a surreal, almost dreamlike glow. The ground trembled, faintly at first, then in stronger, unmistakable shudders. Buildings rattled, bridges groaned. The planet itself seemed alive. Meanwhile, in orbit, the alien fleet hovered tensely. The single vessel that had broken formation edged closer to the ocean, scanning the source of the voice. On board, their sensors detected movement, shadows shifting across the ship's hull as if it were aware of their every action. The alien commander barked orders, but the machines refused to cooperate fully. Systems fluctuated unpredictably, as though the battleship's influence was reaching beyond the ocean and into space itself. Humanity had begun to notice subtle effects everywhere. Wildlife acted erratically, communications faltered, and global navigation systems skewed inexplicably. Panic spread, but so did fascination. People stared at the sky as the spirals of light twisted and writhed, feeling both fear and awe. It was as though Earth itself was signaling to them, a language older than time, and no one had the key to understand it. The research team finally reached the submarine's control deck, their instruments showing something impossible. The ship's core was no longer dormant, and its energy signatures were shifting, synchronizing with the planet's magnetic field. "It's learning," one whispered. "It's adapting." The words barely left her lips before the ocean around them erupted in a surge of energy, lifting the ship further into the open. Water cascaded over the surface like molten silver. Above, the alien vessel faltered. Sensors overloaded, engines screaming as the ship struggled to maintain orbit. A sudden pulse knocked communications offline. The alien commander's voice was tight with tension. "It's not attacking, but it's testing us." The term testing did nothing to ease the rising panic among the fleet. They had trained for war, for diplomacy, for exploration, but not for this. On the surface, global powers convened in emergency sessions. Satellites showed the battleship fully risen from the ocean now, towers of glowing metal rising higher than any known structure. Its hull reflected the auroras overhead, almost blending with the shifting sky, as if it were becoming part of the world itself. Humanity could see it. And yet, no one knew whether it was friend or foe. Then came the sound. A deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from the ocean floor, the air, even the ground beneath cities. Humans and aliens alike felt it, not through ears but through bones, through the pulse of their hearts. It was a command, a warning, a challenge. The voice returned, clearer this time, more insistent. "Do not approach. Do not interfere. Stand back, or awaken what sleeps beyond." The alien fleet faltered, unsure whether to retreat or advance. Human militaries hesitated, weapons poised but useless. And in the ocean, the battleship's lights blazed, engines humming with a growing intensity, as though preparing for something monumental. Every eye, human and alien, watched as tension tightened like a drawn bowstring. Above, the auroras flared violently. The ocean surged as if the planet itself were rising to meet the ship. The pulse grew louder, faster, echoing across Earth and into space. Both species sensed the same unspoken truth. Whatever was coming next could change everything. And then, a shadow detached from the battleship, massive and deliberate, moving toward the surface with terrifying precision, as if the world was holding its breath for the inevitable confrontation. The shadow rose from the battleship, massive and deliberate, cutting through the ocean like a blade. It wasn't a weapon or a structure. It moved with purpose, almost as if it had thought. The water boiled around it, sending waves crashing against coastlines and shaking ships in the nearby seas. People on beaches and in cities stared in horror and awe, their phones capturing fleeting glimpses of something that defied description. Then, the impossible happened. The ship's hull split along a seam that no one had noticed before, revealing interior chambers glowing with an eerie light. Inside, moving silhouettes could be seen, shapes that were neither human nor alien. They weren't attacking yet, but their presence alone sent a ripple of fear through the observers both on Earth and in orbit. One scientist murmured, It's creating something, or someone." In orbit, the alien fleet struggled to process what they were seeing. Their scans indicated organic matter within the battleship, but not life as they knew it. Cells were intertwined with metal, systems responding to thought rather than commands. It was as if the ship had been building an intelligence of its own all along. The alien commander's calm exterior cracked for the first time. "It's evolving," they said, "and it's learning from both us and them." On Earth, the research team raced to analyze the new data. The battleship's signal had changed, no longer a warning, but a direct communication pattern, complex, layered, and almost intelligent. It's trying to teach us, one of the scientists realized, or maybe test us. Every instrument showed the same thing. The planet itself was now an active participant. Energy readings surged from tectonic lines, volcanoes, and the deep ocean trenches, synchronizing with the ship's pulses. Earth and the battleship weren't separate anymore. They were linked. Global leaders panicked as the waves from the ocean's upheaval grew taller, crashing against cities far from the coast. Satellites recorded massive auroras twisting across the sky, forming patterns that resembled ancient symbols, long forgotten by humanity. Some suggested it was a message from the battleship. Others feared it was a countdown to destruction. Military forces debated whether to strike, but weapons failed in strange ways. Missiles stalled in midair, sensors overloaded, drones vanished without a trace. Then came the second twist. The battleship's shadow shifted again, and suddenly, the water around it erupted in multiple columns of light. From each column, humanoid shapes emerged, cloaked in the same strange metallic organic material as the ship. They moved in perfect synchronization, scanning the humans, scanning the aliens, assessing them both. The aliens froze in orbit, unsure whether to attack or retreat. Human eyes widened as the shapes began to step toward the surface, each movement deliberate, almost ceremonial. The research team realized something chilling. The figures weren't just a defense mechanism, they were emissaries, agents of the battleship itself, and they seemed to carry the memory of an ancient civilization long erased from human history. One of the scientists whispered, voice barely audible over the trembling ocean, This is what was waiting for first contact. We weren't supposed to find it yet." As the ships and humans watched, the emissaries raised their arms, and the planet itself seemed to respond. A low-frequency vibration spread across the globe, rattling windows, shaking mountains, and making even the strongest structures quiver. The message was clear. Earth had awakened something much larger than either species could have anticipated. And in that instant, the boundaries between human, alien, and the battleship blurred. Every eye, every sensor, every mind understood the same terrifying truth. The conflict was no longer about contact. It was about survival, and the planet itself had just chosen sides. The ocean boiled, the sky twisted with unearthly light, and the first of the emissaries stepped fully onto the surface, a silent herald of what was about to come. The countdown had begun, and no one knew how it would end. The emissaries paused at the shoreline, their metallic organic forms gleaming under the auroras twisting above. For a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Humanity and the alien fleet watched in tense silence as the ocean's energy pulsed beneath them, and the battleship rose fully into view, massive and awe-inspiring, its hull radiating a power that defied comprehension. Then, without warning, the emissaries lifted their arms, and a beam of light connected the ship to the planet itself, creating a glowing lattice across Earth. It was both a warning and a bridge, an invitation to witness the full power of what had awakened. On Earth, the research team realized the truth. The battleship wasn't a weapon. It was a guardian, designed to protect the planet from civilizations that had once exploited it and abandoned it. Its previous slumber had been a waiting period, a test of readiness. And now, with both humanity and the alien fleet present, it had determined the time had come to decide whether they were worthy of survival or of coexistence. The alien commander hesitated, scanning the emissaries. Their ships were powerful, yet fragile against the battleship's influence. They tried to retreat, but the planet itself seemed to resist, guiding them back into orbit. Every sensor indicated the same thing. The battleship controlled the environment. It was alive, aware, and fully conscious of all life around it. On the ground, the emissaries began interacting with the humans. They communicated not through words but through thought and emotion, sharing visions of Earth's past, of civilizations rising and falling, of mistakes that had nearly destroyed the planet before humanity even existed. The scientists felt a wave of understanding wash over them. The battleship wasn't just judging the aliens, or humanity, or even Earth itself. It was teaching. It wanted them to see the consequences of greed, of fear, and of violence. Suddenly, the auroras intensified, and the battleship emitted a low, resonant tone that shook the ground. The alien fleet attempted one final maneuver, but their ships were gently lifted, guided by invisible currents of energy, toward a formation above the planet. The fleet realized they were not being attacked. They were being integrated into the planet's protection system, included in the test, rather than punished for their presence. Then, in a flash of radiant light, the battleship's core opened fully, revealing a chamber filled with advanced, glowing machinery and a network of flowing energy lines connecting the planet, the ship, and the alien vessels. The planet itself seemed to breathe in rhythm with the ship. Humanity's fears melted into awe. They realized Earth was not defenseless. It had allies older and wiser than any species could imagine. But just as relief began to settle, a tremor ran through the ground, stronger than before. The emissaries stiffened. The battleship's light flickered erratically. The scientists gasped. Something else had awakened. Something older than even the battleship. A shadow darker than night emerged from the depths, vast and amorphous, stretching beyond the horizon. The battleship pulsed fiercely, the emissaries moving into defensive formations. The aliens and humans alike understood. The planet had passed its test. But the real challenge was only beginning. Whatever this new presence was, it had been lying dormant, waiting for both protector and civilization to awaken it together. And as the sky darkened, the ground quaked, and the auroras shifted into terrifying spirals, the battleship's final message resonated through every mind present. This world is alive. Respect it, or witness its wrath. The air held its breath. The planet had chosen its champions, but something ancient, unimaginable, had also chosen its moment to rise. The first contact had ended, but the war for Earth's destiny had only just begun. The shadow receded slowly, but the tension didn't leave immediately. The vast, ancient presence had tested the battleship's defenses, probing the planet, but it had not attacked. It lingered on the edge of perception, like a storm holding its breath, before finally retreating into the depths of the ocean and the far reaches of the sky. Humanity and the alien fleet stood in stunned silence, realizing that survival wasn't just about strength. It was about understanding, cooperation, and respect for the forces that had been guarding Earth long before either species had arrived. The battleship's light dimmed, and its emissaries began to disperse, their metallic organic forms dissolving into energy that flowed back into the ship and then into the planet itself. The ocean calmed, waves returning to gentle rhythms, and the auroras faded to subtle glimmers. It was as though the planet was sighing, relieved. Scientists on the ground and in orbit checked instruments again and again, verifying that tectonic activity had normalized and energy readings had stabilized. The planet itself had absorbed the shock and returned to a state of balance. Communication with the battleship continued, but it was no longer frantic or overwhelming. Its signals were calm, instructive, and even comforting. Through the pulses, the research team and the global leaders learned the lessons the battleship had been waiting to teach: the importance of stewardship, the necessity of humility in the face of the universe, and the need for unity between civilizations, human and alien alike. It wasn't just about first contact. It was about coexistence. The alien fleet lowered their weapon systems completely, moving into formation near the planet without hostility. There was a sense of mutual understanding now, a fragile peace cemented by the knowledge that Earth had awakened defenses that could not be challenged lightly. Humans, once fearful and confused, began to recognize the significance of what they had witnessed. It was more than survival. It was a call to evolve, to grow, and to respect the delicate balance of life on their planet. Back on the coasts, the research team documented the final changes to the battleship. Its hull now reflected the planet itself, shimmering as if it had become part of Earth, no longer a separate entity. The ancient markings had shifted, aligning with natural formations on the planet's surface, symbolizing a deep bond between Earth and its guardian. Humanity finally understood. The battleship had been waiting for intelligence capable of reasoning, of empathy, of cooperation. That intelligence had been tested and had passed. In the skies, auroras returned to their natural patterns, dazzling but gentle, and the oceans quieted. Humanity had glimpsed the power and patience of a force far older than themselves. The alien fleet began to depart, leaving behind small emissaries that would act as observers and protectors, integrated into Earth's new equilibrium. As the last light faded from the battleship and it sank partially back into the ocean, humanity reflected on the event. They had been part of first contact with an intelligence that challenged them not through aggression, but through understanding. They realized that the galaxy was vast, full of potential friends and threats, but Earth itself had allies and guardians far beyond imagination. And in that moment, standing on the shore, watching the calm sea and the soft glimmers of aurora, humanity felt both small and infinite at once, aware that the planet was alive, that they were not alone, and that the story of Earth had only truly begun. The battleship slept again, patient, waiting, but humanity had changed. They were no longer just observers of the galaxy. They were participants, and Earth had awakened with them.